All right, welcome back. We are out of court this week, as I've told you before. We usually in Horry County will have two judges, one doing pleas and one doing trials, back-to-back weeks. So it would be like the week of the 10th and then the week of the 17th in Horry, and you would have four judges split up. Two judges one week, two judges the next week, where we do pleas and trials. And for the most part, and then Georgetown, they're back in court next week. But for the most part, obviously, with a prosecutor, our number one thing is, criminal prosecutions. There is a time that we get involved in civil prosecutions, and that's been in the news a lot lately, and it's been driven, one real big side of the story. But civil asset forfeitures, that's been all over the news. Now let me tell you what that is. The main way we see that is when police pull over a car. They get individual with a bunch of dope, a set of scales, a stack of money, and a gun. The person is obviously arrested because you can't have illegal substances. Now, there is going to, regardless of what anybody else tells you, there's going to be a seizure in all of those cases, because you got to seize the drugs, right? What would you think about cops if they pulled them over, towed the vehicle, put the guy in jail, and left the dope in the back seat? That never happens. It can happen. That's known as a seizure. But now, what do we do with the money? What do we do with the scales? What do we do with the gun? We seize all of that also. The thing that's been up in the news a good bit is, what do we do with the money at that point? The state, and every state, has a statute on that. And it is very strict. But it is that the police get the better part of that money. And the only things that they can really use it for is to battle drug sales and to help people that have become addicted to drugs. So the case that we had, and the reason that it's all in the news is it all started here in Horry County. It was a case called State v. Green, where one of our local judges at the circuit court level held that the statute as written was unconstitutional. Well, obviously, we appealed his decision, and that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And we got a good bit of kickback, because a lot of the upstate papers, especially up around Greenville, was very adamant about getting rid of civil asset forfeiture. Well, my explanation is this, and we took it to the Supreme Court and we won, but my explanation is that when you come across money because of ill-gotten gain, you and I can't make money like that selling illegal drugs. So what do we do with that cash? And the statute has always said to give it to the police so that they can use it to battle the scourge that is addiction across our area. You see every day people dying of overdoses. So for the last 2 years we haven't been able to do that. Ours has been held up. But we argued it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, in that ruling, State v. Green, said if you're going to do civil asset forfeiture, you got to do it, or you should do it, just like Horry and Georgetown counties do it. They said everything that we did was perfect. One thing is, we never take that on simple possession. It has got to be either distribution, or it's got to be possession with intent to distribute, i.e. you've got scales, you've got baggies, you've got dope, you've got the money. In the Green case, Mr. Green had said on a search warrant, he said, look, that money that's in there with that drugs in my backpack, the money came from the sale of drugs. The scale, all of that stuff came for the sale of drugs. And if you'll look in this safe, that's other monies that I've taken. It was somewhere around $20,000. That's other monies that I've gotten from the sale of drugs. So obviously, we were going to seize that and give it to the police so that they could use. Now there is an entire hearing. We don't just seize it. We have to go in front of a judge. The defendant is represented by a defense attorney. And then we go forward and say, this is why we believe that this money was gotten illegally, and that he shouldn't, Mr. Green shouldn't be able to get that money. And that is where the defense attorney and everybody else would argue, oh no, this is from his grandma, or this is some other person that had it. In that case, he had already given a statement that all of that money came from that sale. So when they held it unconstitutional for a while, we kept it and appealed it. If we had not appealed it, what we would have had to have done, oh, by the way, Mr. Green is currently serving 15 years for distribution of drugs. If we hadn't have appealed it, we would have had to take that $20,000 to Lee Correctional or wherever he is in prison and put it on his honey bun account. And it's just against everything I believe in to believe that you should be able to profit from selling illegal drugs that is killing people and then give you the money back. So we appealed it, and of course we won. But let's take drugs out of it for a second. And this way I believe everybody can understand it. Not long ago we had a bank robbery where 2 tellers were killed right up the road here at Crestcom Bank. When they found the Brandon Council in North Carolina, he had 2 big bags of money, right? And they had Crestcom Bank on them. How foolish would it be for us to say, you've got life in prison, but since this money was with you, we're going to give it to you and you can spend out of your account on this. That's crazy. What we did was we give the money back to the bank. Now in drug cases, back to drugs, we can't go to everybody that purchased it and said, hey, how many rocks did you get? How much did you get? And distribute the money back out. So something's got to happen with the money that we've proven was taken by the defendant illegally. The statute says you give that to the police so that they can combat drugs in the future. You can't go buy a car, you can't supplement pay, but you can do things to help with other drug cases. So that's what we've done. The statute is still there. I do believe that the statute needs to be modified because there have been abuses in small towns, especially on the interstate, where people would go, the claim is money would be seized by the police and then the person would be cut loose. That doesn't happen in South Carolina. That doesn't happen in Horry or Georgetown. That did not happen in Greene, and I believe that is why we won that case. But it ain't just money, right? It's guns. We would have to give the gun back. What do we do with guns now? We give it to the police, and then they use it to get artillery or whatever. They get bullets. But those guns are taken. Anytime there's a seizure, we got to do something with the product that's seized. And State v. Green says rely back on the statute. I'll be back with you next week. Hopefully we'll be back in court and I can give you some updates on what's going on there. That's the second side to this story about civil asset forfeiture.